Everything came back. No, that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call this December 7th meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee to order. We do have a quorum present, and then I know Mr. Seep is going to be joining us, and I don't have my glasses on to see. It sounds like it looks like Supervisor Luck is online, but she said she's going to be pretty busy today and will be listening in, so she didn't think she'd be a very reliable voice today. So we do have 4 of us in the room, so we have quorum, and then Mr. Seep will be joining us, and Mr. Langreich, you might want to tell Mr. Seep that the WebEx option is up and running when he does call you. He should be calling you within a couple minutes here. So proof of notification, I did see the proof of notification go out by Ms. Dole, and it's posted on the bulletin board as well downstairs. Agenda item number 3, we've got a 20-point agenda today. Looking for a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Gentis, second by Brewer. All those in favor of the agenda, please say aye. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 4, previous meeting minutes. So I do have one slight change. Did you notice one, Supervisor Gentis? Your name was not listed as present. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes with a change that Supervisor Gentis be listed as present at the meeting.
So moved.
I'll second it because I was there.
Okay, motion by Brewer, second by Gentis.
Looking whether I was on it.
I just happened to take my time reading the minutes today. And this motion is to approve 2 sets of minutes, by the way, so that addition of Supervisor Gentis would be to the first set of minutes, not to the second set of minutes.
1 minute. I wasn't at yet.
So the minutes we're approving today are for November 2nd and November 11th. Yep. You were, and the only reason I knew you were there was because later on in the minutes, you were seconding and making motions. Okay, any more discussion on these?
Motion would include all previous minutes.
Okay, great. Any further discussion on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor of approving both sets, please say aye. I don't think anyone's opposed, so that motion carries. We've got minutes approved. Agenda item number 5 under finance, including purchasing and contracts. American Rescue Plan for Early Childhood Education and Child Care Providers Grant Application Review and Recommendations.
Mr. Chair, this is a follow-up from last meeting where we deferred it pending more information that was sought by the committee. Today, looking for the same recommendation, motion to recommend grant awards to providers is illustrated in option number 2. To recommend resolution to the county board to award grants to these identified providers in the amount specified and to ask administration with development of a grant award agreement, releasing the funds, obtaining expenditure reports, and filing reports to the U.S. Treasury. The other options that are available to you is another course of action that was entertained, as well as then you have the ability to recut, reapportion as you see fit, as well as to ask for additional types of informations. The background on this item is in the November 2nd Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, guidance was given to administration to further assess the grant applications with considerations for the following: services of the applicants offer, impacts of a reduced or denied grant apportionment, number of children they are able to provide services to. In response to this request, the assistant administrator solicited a questionnaire to the applicants seeking additional information. These questionnaires were reviewed by the administrator, assistant, and staff of the Health and Human Services familiar with child care and education regulations and operations. The result of this review is the development of a 3rd course of action for the committee to consider. The current options are based on the following types of reasoning. Options 1 and 2 you would have seen last time. The first one is a utilitarian type of approach. It's appropriation of a reduction of funds for all applicants. With this option, though, we did find out that applicant number 5, is indicated on the matrix we reviewed last month and we'll review again, states that the project would not move forward. With option 2, which is the recommendation, this is kind of in the mindset of the fastest impacts and expanding services. It funds all that are currently open or close to being open at 100% of their request increased childcare availability. It reduces the two largest requests evenly and does not fund the applicant requesting on behalf of increase in operational safety. The third one that was evaluated was kind of more of a Rawls approach. It looked at distribution, it distributes full apportionments to two of the smaller providers with less access to additional funding sources. Reduces the apportionment to the provider with safety requests by cutting the driveway improvement project, and distributes the remaining apportionment funds to the larger operations proportionately, meeting roughly 1/2 of their requested amounts. In reviewing the matrix, Mr. Chair, hoping this pops up for your folks as well. So you'll see the added third option on here. Again, a review on this is the applicant numbers. Again, we put them by number again to afford the committee the opportunity to try to take this in as a anonymous by name. Again, that information can be requested by the committee if you want to know who these applicants are by names. And the third option that was kind of added on here again is kind of a Rawls type of an approach here, where we tried to fund the ones that we thought had access by the responses back had access to lesser funding opportunities in order to try to bring them up, and then reducing the two bigger operations with expressed possibilities of other funding sources. And I would defer to Assistant to the Administrator, Cheryl Dull, who was heavily involved in the research and bringing the questionnaires back for further comment. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so what thoughts or questions do committee members have about this? This is coming back to us after last month. I know we requested some more information.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question. I'm concerned in getting healthcare out to the community through this grant process. I see that option 2 eliminates one of our, or at least eliminates funding for one of the 5 entities here. And I wonder if going to option 3, where we give something to everybody, if that, because we're cutting down 2 of the larger grants, or 3 of them considerably, what effect would that have on the larger grantees? Would that cause them to say, no, we can't continue then? That's my question. Does anybody know that?
In our questionnaire, that was one of the questions we asked, how would it affect their funding? The 2 largest ones that we cut down to the 50, almost 52%, said they would keep searching and look for alternative funding as well. It didn't sound like it would stop them, it just may slow them down.
Not a deal breaker.
Correct.
Okay, other questions?
Is Mr.
Yeah.
Seep on the line? He had some thoughts about this, if he's listening.
I think he was wondering about locations. He was asking for locations of these different places.
So the locations, I think the question kind of got lost with the people out there. Mostly they just pretty much listed the county as the locations they would serve. They didn't go into specifics, although one did say they currently have an after-school program they would continue to serve that after-school program, and then if they got the funding, they would expand further.
I think Mr. Seep's question is more about where is the childcare operation located? Like, is it in Richland Center, or like I know one of them is in Rockbridge.
I can tell you they didn't answer that, but one's Rockbridge, one's Ithaca, 2 are Richland Center, and 1 is within the ET of Richland Center. So outside of the city limits, but still in the extraterritorial.
Yep, we can hear you, Mr. Seep, and just so you know, the WebEx option is up and running now, so if you decide to join that way, you can do that. But in the meantime, we were just getting your question answered about locations of the childcare centers. and I'm gonna try to repeat this best I can. So I think 2 were in Richland Center, 1 in Ithaca, 1 in Rockbridge, and 1 was just outside of Richland Center. Did I get that right, Ms. Dole? Okay, okay. Well, 1's in Ithaca, so if you count. Yep. Okay, so. Okay, so it sounds like Mr. Brewer, your preference is option number 3. Did I get that? Did I hear that right?
I think it is, yes.
Okay.
Unless someone tells me that it's wrong, my thinking is wrong somehow.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm only confused about one thing because in number 1, applicant 5 said that they can't move forward. And they were, and in number 3, are we giving, is that the same? I don't get why that's different now.
Under option
3.
3, you're wondering why it's lower than option 2.
No, number 1, if we gave a proportion to everybody,
Under option number 1, yep. Okay,
applicant 5 said that they couldn't go forward with the project.
that's right.
So under number 3, since we're not giving as much money, what happens to this applicant 5 here? You said that they didn't get, that was okay? That's why I was confused,
Under option 3, they've been given their full allocation of 43 grand.
because they're one of the smaller ones.
I'm not sure the answer to that.
Smaller ones, but they were ones that said they could not continue forward if they did not get funding.
So on option 3, we're giving them the full funding.
Yes, we're giving them, yep. So what they're requesting is on there's columns with the numbers, and then there's, are they certified? And the next one is the amount requested, which, looking at column 3, number 5 gets the full amount. Number 2 gets the full amount. Number 4, we reduced, as Clint said, the street parking, and the other 2, we split the remainder evenly. Was about 51%.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm aware that at least one of the applicants is present. Walsh's, Amanda, and Jamie. You all remember Jamie, his wife, Amanda. And I would invite them to comment if that's appropriate. I would like to hear from them.
Yeah, and Mr. Walsh, if you want to come up to the corner of the table, and Mr. Langer will bring you a microphone and just speak into that so the folks online can hear what you have to say.
Okay, I'm here to speak for my wife. The only thing I don't really have any comments other than you're going to find out which number we are as I speak. But with option number 1, without the full amount, we probably could not move forward. To be honest, the 43 was a very minimal amount to start with. And my suggestion would be to look at dollars per child that you can add, because with one new caretaker, you can get 8 children. And so for the relatively small amount compared to the other requests, that's a full 8 children new for a smaller amount of money. That's my arguing comment.
And then that was one question we did ask last time. How many children would be served by each option? Can you go through that, Ms. Dole? All 5 options?
Here, but number 1 would roll out not the full amount immediately. The first year they would begin with a K3 and K4 and then increase more after that. So they were going to start out pretty small at first. I'm just looking for the number. So the bigger ones said they were going to start out with minimum children with a rollout over a 3 to 5 year period being, well, they didn't quote that, that I'm seeing, but it's one person. That's what I was looking to see if they quoted a number, but they didn't really quote a number. Just that they would roll out over a 5 year period, they would get up to 50 students, but not right away. Option 2 would increase hours, and currently, apparently, they can only watch children for 8 hours maximum, and this must be state rules. So during those extra hours, they would pick up extra kids, and I think the total was approximately 5. Option number 3 was no. Option number 3 was, oh, that, I'm sorry. Option 2, nope, that was right. Option 3 then is, yes, yeah, sorry, you're right, provider. That would increase to 8 total. Option 4 would be no increase. The reason we left it in there was because the funds are based off the pandemic and the safety of the pandemic. So we put that back in because 2 of their things they're asking for are safety issues that would help with the care and the spacing of the children and getting outside. So we did take out the parking because that wasn't a safety pandemic issue, but there's no children increase for that. Number 5 is,
So the question from Ms. Gentis is what's their,
Yeah.
what are the total number of children already being served by option number 4? Is that correct?
yeah, there would be no increase in children on option 4.
How many do they already serve is her question.
8 currently.
They currently serve 8, but no
Yes.
increase. Okay.
Correct. And then option number 5 was to increase, maybe, that was to increase 8. They have none. They're still working on their certification. They should be licensed by January, is what it sounded like talking to Stephanie.
Make sure
Right.
to speak into the mic so that people online can hear.
I'm sorry, should I ask you if I could talk?
No, just go ahead. Yeah.
Nobody has more than 8 children.
Correct. Nobody has more than 8.
Yep. Go ahead. Yep.
I just want to explain. So in child
And this is Amanda Walsh for folks listening online.
sorry, for child care, there is a ratio. So there can only be up to 8 children to 1 adult. So that would be why most of them are at 8, because if they are family licensed daycare, they can only have up to 8 children. So I'm assuming, like when you were trying to question for number 1, what their goal probably is to start with 1 provider, and then they're going to have to add additional staffing to create it up to that 50. That helps.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
My-
Go ahead,
my-
Mr. Brewer. Yep.
my take on this would be, there really isn't anybody any bigger than anybody else. It's just some people ask for more money. Made them seem larger.
That's, may I say, that's exactly what I don't understand, is I thought they had many more. What is the difference here?
Well, number one is they do anticipate getting up to 50, so that would be the exception. They would be the only ones that
I'm assuming that's the Rockbridge location.
it is. That's my that's my best guess anyway. And I just want to ask staff too, so did you all are recommending option number 2, and that doesn't give any funds to how do I say it? Option number, it's not daycare number 4 or provider number 4, thank you. Why are you all recommending option 2 with no funds to provider number 4? Is it because they're not increasing the number of children being served? Is that the reason?
My recommendation coming forward, Mr. Chair, and for those of you, this is Administrator Langrick, is to the fastest impacts on expanding the volume of daycare. So it doesn't account for the safety requests of number 4. It's in trying to get the fastest and the mostest, of course, of an economic incentive to try to get folks into daycare and more folks out in the economy participating to help fundings here at Richland County.
Okay, thank you. So for committee members, I'm wondering if this solidifies anyone else's opinion. I think, Mr. Brewer, where were you at? Which option was your?
I like option 3.
You like option 3, which gives them to all. Okay, Mr. Turk, do you have any thoughts to share?
Agree with Administrator Langrick to make the biggest impact possible in the shortest amount of time, which would be option 2.
Okay, Ms. Gentis, do you have an opinion at this point? I can go first if it makes it easier. But,
I guess I was going with option 3 because that got them all going and around the county. And if that's going to be really slow, then I don't understand why it's any slower than number 2.
well, it would give less money to provider number 1 and number 3.
Right, I understand.
And so maybe that would be I don't know if that, I don't think staff asked that question specifically. If you were given, 81 grand instead of 116 grand, are you going to not be able to provide to as many children necessarily? But I guess after me kind of digesting all this, I'm kind of leaning toward option 2, like Mr. Turk, because I think the more people, the more spots we can provide to families for children would be the most beneficial. So that's kind of where I'm at, but we'll need
Okay,
someone to break
Mr.
our tie
Chairman?
vote. Yes, Mr. Brewer.
Chair,
How do you figure it makes more, because you're eliminating at
Yeah.
least funding one of them.
Well, provider number 4 won't be increasing the number of children if they get the funds. So if we don't give the funds to provider number 4, we'll be serving the same number of children because they're still going to be serving the children they're already serving.
Mr. Chairman, I'm joining now.
Oh, great. And I think I heard Supervisor Luck also. So Supervisor Luck, you want to go first and then Mr. C?
yeah, I was just going to say that I also am leaning to option number 2.
Okay, Mr. C, do you have an opinion?
I'm sorry. I would need a quick summary because I was not able to connect. Just got on.
I can take a shot at it. We're allocating $335,000 with any of these options. Option number 2 would give funding to 4 out of 5 of the providers. Option number 3 would give funding to 5 out of 5 of the providers. And the way that that's accomplished in option number 3 is by reducing the amount that provider number 1 would get and provider number 3 would get. So that's my best shot at it. I don't know if that's enough information.
Okay, now what is the rationale then for eliminating number 5?
There is no discussion of eliminating provider number 5. The discussion is
I
about
thought you said
eliminating provider number 4.
number 4, I'm sorry. And what was the rationale for that?
The rationale is that they are already a licensed provider they would not be increasing the number of children served with these funds. They would only be making safety improvements. Whereas the other 4 providers would all be increasing the number of children served.
I see. And so the viability of number 4 would not be negatively impacted by being eliminated.
I'm not comfortable answering that. What do you think, Ms. Dole? Do you want to take a shot at that after having read through all these applications?
I don't think you need to answer on their business plan and how it impacts them. I'm assuming that their safety needs that they have in place are going to make them more attractive and help sustain their type of business as well as make it safe. But again, it's just an indication that it wasn't an expanded of service. It was just a increased safety of service.
So
the extent of how, or we can speculate.
So this is the recommendation resulting from a staff review?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, I think just to go ahead and move this along, let's just get a motion on the floor for one of these options. So who wants to make a motion?
Move for option 3.
Okay, motion by Brewer on option number 3. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
There's a second by Supervisor Gentis. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Chair, is an option that you don't have to exercise, but at this point with having an understanding of what one of the provider numbers are and a speculation on what another one is, I'll leave it to yourselves to determine the appropriateness at this point of knowing the names of all the providers, if that's appropriate or not.
Okay, any other discussion from committee members?
Discussion.
Go ahead, Mr. Seat.
Are any of the applicants present?
Yes.
And have they had an opportunity to ask questions or speak, or is that part of the agenda?
Yes, they have. They've already done that.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I missed it.
Okay, so I think we need to go ahead and take a roll call vote on this. So Ms. Dole, are you going to be doing roll call votes for us? Okay, great. So if you could go ahead and take a roll call vote on this one. And can you speak into the microphone? Thanks.
This is Cheryl speaking. Linda Gentis.
Aye.
Brewer.
Aye.
Turk.
No.
No.
Don Seat.
I can't hear Cheryl. Did she say my name?
Not yet.
Okay,
Don
sorry.
I vote aye.
And Melissa Luck.
No.
Okay, so we've got 3 in favor and 3 against. So then the motion fails. Now, if for the folks who did vote aye on this, if we go through the process of someone making a motion and seconding for option number 2, I'm wondering if anyone's going to change their vote or not, because we don't necessarily need to go through this if no one's going to change their vote. And we could potentially table this till later in the meeting, but this does need to go forward to the county board at next Tuesday's meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Brewer, go ahead.
Well, in option number 2, you're taking away any money from number 4 here. And it seems to me that they're actually up and running, and the money they're requesting is to make safety improvements, which kind of is in the spirit of the whole funding mechanism from the feds. So, they're the ones who are actually doing it, and they want money now to improve the safety. So it doesn't make any sense to me to underfund them.
Okay, Mr. Seat, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I was interested in the reasoning for the no votes. I think it would be helpful to me and perhaps the rest of the committee.
You want to go first, Mr. Turk?
Sure. My reasoning was to try to allocate the most money possible towards the ones that are going to increase the availability of childcare openings within the county, because the need is critical.
And Supervisor Luck? Still there?
Yeah, that's my reasoning as well.
Yeah, and I share Mr. Turk's thoughts.
I still don't understand why it's faster.
Can you state that question again?
You're on. I don't really understand why it's faster if you're distributing the money.
Why what's faster? Can you explain that a little more?
What you just said, that it would be a faster impact. It says it here, but I don't see why it does.
Well, I think, me personally, I don't know, Mr. Turk, if you want to give the original.
Faster in the sense of we're moving the new providers farther along to get them up and running faster to make those additional slots available, is my perspective.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Mr. Turk and I presume whoever else voted, no, your preference would be option 2. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Well, everybody gets something with option 2, except 1.
That's right. Provider number 4 would get nothing with option number 2. So yeah, it's not correct that everybody gets something. Provider number 4 would not get anything, to be really clear. Option 3, which you voted for, everyone does get something.
Does
Yep. So I'm not hearing anyone who voted yes saying that they want to change their vote. I hear Mr. Seep asking a lot of questions, but I don't hear I'm not hearing that you want to change your vote. Do you, Mr. Seep?
well, I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
One, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I'm thinking about changing my vote because I don't want to have this discussion at the county board level.
Okay, well, let's go ahead
So we need to
and
move this along.
I move for reconsideration in view of Mr. Brewer's sentiments.
I don't agree with your reasoning.
Mr. Chair,
yep, go ahead,
instead of
Mr. Turk.
reconsideration, could we just do a motion to go with option 2?
I'll take that as a motion
That
to
is a
go.
motion, sir.
Option number 2, is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Turk, second by Luck. Any discussion on this one?
Okay, and the reason it's faster is only because you're giving money to people already, where the other one is the same thing. I don't get the difference. Just once more, what's the difference?
The difference would be with provider number 1 and provider number 3, they're going to get more money. So the thinking is that they will be able to open up more spots. If you look at the grand total of all these seats available, because they're getting more money and they're new providers. Well, that's the thinking. Let's go ahead and take a roll call vote on this too, Ms. Stoll. And if you can just switch it, so that your first person was your second person last time, just so that they're not in the same order. That'd be great. Thanks. Usually you go with whoever was number 2 last time, they're number 1, and everyone shifts a spot. And then the number 1 vote last time gets to be the last this time.
He who is first shall be last.
We're voting on option 2,
We're
correct?
voting on option 2. That's correct.
Aye.
Yes.
Cheryl, you're not on. Now you are.
For folks online, we had Mr. Brewer, Mr. Turk, and myself all vote yes so far.
Am I on now? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, now you're on.
So where was I, Sean? Did you vote?
I voted yes.
Linda? Linda?
Regrettably, yes.
I vote yes, and I'd ask that the
Hold
participants.
on, Mr. Seep. Hold on.
Don?
I can't hear people.
Don, your
I'm
vote's up.
voting yes. I'm voting yes.
And Melissa?
Yes.
Okay, so that carries unanimously. So this will go ahead and move forward to the county board, and thank you for the discussion. Thank you to the Walshes for coming today, and thank you to everyone who submitted applications and to Ms. Dole who went through these with Mr. Langren. So this takes us to agenda item number 6, interdepartmental fund transfer for purchase of tires, land conservation. Mr. Langren.
Mr. Chair, just as a recommendation, don't have to take action on it, but we do have, I believe, our auditor, Bill Moyleen, is on. Do an audit report. It might free up Bill to attend to other things if we can address them early, and I apologize, I should have brought this up prior to the meeting.
I don't, maybe we could, since we've got Ms. Cooper here too, could we go through 6, 7, and 8, and then we could go to the audit report?
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's carry on with agenda item number 6 here.
Agenda item number 6, this is going to be Fund 75 for Mill Creek. We're looking for a motion.
No, this is the one about the moving the tire purchase funds around from mileage.
Not supposed to. No, it does say Fund 75 at the top. It's supposed to not say that. It's
Oh,
supposed to
sorry.
say-
Thank you, thank you. Looking for, the action language here is looking for motion to approve transferring $800 from line account 105741 zeros 5339 to the other account 105741 zeros 5352 in Land Conservation Fund 10 2021 budget. Land Conservation truck needs new tires to replace all 4 tires, which are becoming unsafe to drive on. Will cost approximately $950 plus disposal fee. Maintenance and repair line for 2021 Land Conservation Fund has only approximately $200 left there. So looking to do a transfer from the remaining $130 left in the other account to execute on that purchase. I would defer to Conservationist Cooper for any further questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, looking for a motion to make this transfer.
I'll move.
Motion by Brewer,
Second.
second by Turk. Any discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 7. Now we're to Fund 75.
Thank you.
Additional expenditures for Mill Creek, Huth, and Ewers Pipe Cradle repair.
Looking for motion to approve additional expenses for repair of the Mill Creek Dams Fund from Fund 75 budget to, and then to pay for the Belzoa epoxy of $333.62. Background on this item is in Fund 75. $100,000 has been requested for the Mill Creek Dams at the July 16th, 2021 meeting of Finance and Personnel. $2,300 was set aside for the Land Conservation Department to purchase Belzona to repair cracks of some of the concrete on the outlet pipes. The product ordered came to a bill of $2,633.62. The $333.62 more than what was requested in the July meeting. Second product call for bonding agent is required to make this repair. This product is necessary to repair the cracks. And overall, this will still leave $93,666 left aside for the Mill Creek Dam repairs. I would refer to Conservationist Cooper for any questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so looking for a motion to increase the amount authorized by $333 and change.
Move for approval.
Motion by Seat, second by Gentis. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 8, Fund 75, expenditures for construction of dams feeding Mill Creek.
Mr. Chair, looking for a motion to approve using funds set aside for the Mill Creek Dams in 75 for private dam construction to protect county operated dams. Background on this item is during the 2020 budget process for 2020, $100,000 was put into Fund 75 capital borrowing for repairs of the Mill Creek dams. The Mill Creek dams were built through the federal PL 566 watershed funds. 8 dams were built in the late 1950s, early 1960s to prevent flooding especially in the village of Boaz. Richland County is responsible for the operation and maintenance of these dams. With what has been and is planned to be done, there's still a little more than $93,000 left. With more frequent heavy rainfall events, the dams are being tasked more heavily to prevent flooding downstream. Land Conservation Department has investigated installment of small dams upstream from the construction to reduce flow to those structures during high rain events. Each dam would be $10,000 to $15,000, with priority given to those upstream from Mill Creek number 6 because of the flood damage to County Highway G when the dam is running full. The next priority would be to areas upstream from Mill Creek number 1A and number 9A, where damages occur in township roads. These would be installed in private property. Questions would have been asked about using the money on private land. I was told that it could be done to protect the county operated dams. I would defer to Conservation. Ms. Cooper, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so this did come from the Land Conservation Committee, and myself and Supervisor Luck are on that committee. I think the idea here is the Land Conservation Department, and jump in and correct me, Ms. Cooper, if I'm wrong on this, and the Land Conservation Committee want to make sure that it's okay to start investigating the possibility of putting dams on private property with this committee before we start telling property owners that that's a possibility. So this is here today just to give approval to the concept of doing that. And I do have an email as background from Ms. Worth about that last point, that it is okay to use publicly borrowed money to build dams on private property. So if anyone wants me to forward this or if you need me to read it, I'm happy to do that. It's a couple paragraphs long.
And this is Kathy. One of the things that will have to be done, we'd have to work with Mr. Wendell on that, is to make sure that we have an agreement, operation and maintenance agreement or something, and figure out how we're going to do that if we do it on private lands, because we are spending quote unquote county money, and we want to have agreement that would be the next step, is finding out what we need for an agreement with Mr. Wendell.
So thoughts from committee members about this idea?
Haven't we been doing this for years? What's new about this? I don't know.
Good question, Ms. Cooper. How's this different? How would this be different from our existing dams that we already have?
Above, especially structure 6, there is not any small dams above there. It's our smallest dam, and there's a big it's a big watershed, and that's the one that those last 2 years we had those 2 huge storms. The highway department had to replace culverts on County Highway G below the dam. And there was some individual roads, private landowners that had to replace culverts because there was just so much water behind it. And we're hoping that this would, at least with that dam, would, because there are no small dams above it, if we could put it on put 2 or 3 or 4 in or whatever it would be. We have funding through the state, but our limited funding would only maybe put in 1 or 2 dams. We're hoping this would give us, especially above dams, structure 6, would give us more.
I think Mr. Brewer's question is, isn't structure number 6, isn't that already on private property?
It's on private property, but we have operation and maintenance. There's a recording on the deed that says Richland County is responsible for operation and maintenance.
And then who would do the operation and maintenance on these dams if these are installed?
This was where we'd have to figure out, most for other dams, it would be the landowner to be responsible for the operation and maintenance. The reason these were
there's your difference, Mr. Brewer.
The federal
is responsible for
these dams were put in with federal funding. So the federal required the county to do that. This would be what the county would be requiring if we put them in. So the county, all our other dams that we do through cost sharing, is they're responsible for operation and maintenance. We'd have to have something recorded or something that would say that they would be, for so many years or whatever, they'd be responsible for the operation and maintenance of those small dams.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Kathy, when we get the cost sharing money from the DNR or DATCAP, when landowners put dry dams in with that money, is there language that they sign that they will maintain these dams in those contracts?
Yes, in the contract, it has them having responsibility for, I don't remember, top of my head, I don't remember. It's either 10 or 15 years. They're
So
responsible
essentially,
by signing.
we could do this, right? So we could do the same thing with ours. It would essentially be, instead of the money coming from DATCAP, it's just coming directly from the county, but we could have the same language in there.
I would think so. That'd be a question for Mr. Wendell.
Yeah. And just for everyone to understand, these are small dry dams. So our larger dams are actually holding back or, are controlling the water. These are going to be dry dams. So the function of dry dams is you put a blockage in some small ravine, and then that when it rains really heavy, it can hold back so that you don't have all of the water from a large rain event hitting those streams and hitting the dams all at the same time. It can leach out much slower.
Okay, any
The
other
question could be repeated, I'm willing to take a crack at it.
Attorney
Bless you.
Wendell.
Yeah, Mr. Wendell, Ms. Cooper, do you want to try to frame that right now, or does that need to happen today at this meeting?
I don't know if it need to happen today, Mr. Wendell. I think that'd be something that if this is a good concept, if the committee goes along with the concept or think we should go ahead with this, then afterwards we would work with you about developing a contract or something for operation and maintenance after the structures are installed on the private property.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's hold off on that for now, and let's get a motion and a second on the table. I don't think we have that yet. This is a motion to approve using funds set aside for Mill Creek dams and Fund 75 for private dam construction to protect county operated dams.
I move to approve and have questions after a second.
Okay, motion by Seat.
Second.
Second by Turk, and Mr. Seat, go ahead.
The first is in the form of a question. The rationale, right, for this is the public benefit of protecting public property, roads, etc., and also, I presume to protect private property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And secondly, how much county tax levy money compared to other sources from federal and state is being spent on this project on a percentage basis?
Would there be any matching? I'm going to rephrase that. Would there be any matching money from the state or the feds for this if we do this?
There is a possibility we get we'd have to ask that question of Department of Ag. If we could piggyback is what they call it in our genre. If we could piggyback money, that's something we would have to ask.
Did this recommendation for these dry dams come from a state agency or a federal agency or from the county?
It came from the Land Conservation Committee.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Cooper. And we saved you from having to sit through the audit report.
Thank you.
All right. So let's skip 9 and 10. We'll come back to those and go to agenda item number 11, 2021 audit report. Mr. Langard.
Mr. Chair, looking today for motion to accept the 2020 audit report and forward report to the county board. Today, background on this item is Johnson Block has completed the county's 2020 audit. Documents are enclosed on your folder and were also made available on the website. This item is intended to be as a brief presentation to introduce the audit results to the Finance and Personnel Committee. The committee will be given a chance to address questions and concerns, and these will be brought forward to the county board with more in-depth presentation. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so am I understanding right that Mr. Moyleen is not making a presentation to this committee this year, that he's just here to answer our questions. Is that right?
We'll have, I've got the two documents from Bill, and I'm hoping he's still online to walk through them. The intentions were also to be the questions that you folks brought forward. We would try to highlight those as well for the county board next week.
Okay, Mr. Moyleen, are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yep, we can hear you. Do you want to walk through the documents first? Or do you want to hear questions from the committee? Or has the committee?
I can do whatever the committee would like, but it might be easier to, I can scroll through the statements quickly. I'll try to pay attention here to what Administrator Langrick is, which pages he's on, and then I'll welcome any questions afterward.
Would it be helpful for the committee for him to just scroll through the documents and give a rough idea of how they're laid out, or would you just like to jump into questions? What do the committee members think? I'm open to either.
Bill, do you want me to drive from this end, or do you have the documents on that end, or you want to share from that end?
I have the documents here, but I'll just mention to you, Clint, what pages I'm looking at.
Sounds good.
You can, yeah.
Yeah, there's about 90 pages of pages in these two documents here, so I'm not hearing much reaction from the committee. So, Mr. Moyleen, if you want to just give us a brief overview, or especially anything of note that you want to point out to the committee that you think we should really be paying attention to in these reports, that would be very helpful.
All right. Well, yeah, there's a lot of information here, so I'll be as quick as I'll just kind of sort of like broad strokes here.
Yes.
If you could go to page 1. Page 1 here is, well, yeah. So our audit report is the first major portion of the financial statements that we issue to the county. Our independent auditor's report is where, this is where our opinion is located. This is what the purpose of the financial statement is, audit is for. And our opinion on the financial statements is actually at the top of page 2, where we say that the financial statements referred to here are presented fairly in all material respects for the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information for the county. So that is known as, and that's an unmodified opinion. That means that we have not modified our opinion for any change that we couldn't come to terms regarding. The emphasis of matter paragraph just below that is just related to a new GASB statement that became effective for the reporting year. The page 4, Clint, is this beginning of the government-wide financial statements. So the basic financial statements begins here. And these statements are presented the way normal full accrual financial statements would be presented, which is not typical for government entities. We take the financial information that the clerk's office and treasurer's office has processed, and we modify it into full accrual financial statements. Clint, page 6 is where the governmental fund statements begin, which would agree to what the clerk's financial information is presented to the county board on a monthly basis. The county reports 3 major funds: the general, debt service, and capital projects funds. All the rest of the governmental funds are reported in aggregate and shown as non-major funds. The income statement is on page 8. Scroll to the bottom of that page. The financial results for the calendar year, the total governmental fund balance increased from 8,230,000 to 8,281,000. And general fund, which is the primary operating fund of the county, which is on the far left-hand column, that increased from 4,785,000 to 5,138,000. And there are just a couple of comments on the income statement. There has been a lot of discussion over the last few years on the reserves that the county has on hand. And there's a minimum fund balance reserve requirement of 25% of total fund balance. And 5,138,000 is about 30% of the county's annual operating expenses. So you have about a 5% cushion, which is a sizable amount. And 30% of expenditures is a pretty reasonable reserve fund balance to have on hand. The next major part of the financial statements is on page 10. Next page, yep, which is where we report the proprietary fund, the enterprise fund financial statements for Pine Valley Community Village, and the highway department, which is an internal service fund for the government. So there's a balance sheet and income statement here again for Pine Valley and highway. And if you want to scroll to the bottom of page 12, the income statement results of the enterprise fund Pine Valley, the operating loss for the year for Pine Valley which is operating revenue minus operating expenses, was about 1,511,000. That loss is offset by property taxes of about 1.4 million and supplemental payments of about 647,000 right there. So, and then there was a transfer there was a transfer to the county of $200,000. So the total change in that position for Pine Valley was an increase of 524,000. So it went from about 1.6 million to 2.1 million in that position. And similar for highway, the highway is set up operating revenues and expenses result in an operating loss of 1,780,000. And that loss is offset by general property taxes of 1.9 million. So the highway department change in that position was an increase. Scroll down a little bit from 4.3 million. It increased 981,000 to 5,293,000. Scroll down a little bit farther. Yep, right there. And then there's page 17 and 18 is where the footnotes begin for the financial statements, which I'm not going to walk you through. That's really where the bulk of the financial statements come in. Goes from like pages 17 through page 53. It's just an area where the county reports on significant balances within the balance sheets and income statements of the basic financial statements. And then after the footnotes, there are more detailed schedules of the non-major funds. If you want to scroll all the way down to page 65. Page 65 is where, oh, sorry, it's actually page 58 here. I was looking at the PDF document. Yeah, right here. Yep. So this page is where we show the detail for what makes up the non-major balances, which are reported in aggregate on the face of the basic financial statements. The special revenue and capital projects funds all reported in total. And that's pretty broad strokes. Are there any questions that you would like me to address here or have prepared for the county-wide meeting?
I'm going to kick us off with one question for you. So my question actually has to do with the on our iPads or on the website. It's 11B, Richland County 2020 required audit communications.
Communication document. Okay.
Yeah. So there were a couple notes in the document. These are at the top of page 7. And one was on departmental cash, and then the other was on CDBG housing loan oversight. So when I was looking through these this morning, I was kind of comparing this year's audit with last year's audit. And I noticed that those issues, you all were making recommendations to us as a county that we resolve a couple things or continue to improve might be the better way to put it, especially about the departmental cash one. But I didn't see any change in the language between the 2 years. So I just was wondering what's going on with those and are we making changes or?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nope. So the departmental cash with the multiple departments at the county, there are many accounts that we talk about as departmental cash accounts, meaning the cash accounts are managed by department heads within their department or by staff within the department. This is very common for counties and county departments as a whole. Common departments that have these types of accounts are sheriff's department, human services department. There might be one or two there's one significant one at clerk of court. And the issue with departmental cash accounts is they are managed outside of the normal course of internal controls which govern the use of county funds. So what happens is that just results in there's a higher risk of human error or deliberate error and fraud, those types of things. And a while back, we made the recommendation. First of all, we identify these accounts when we send confirmations. We send confirmations to the banks that the county does business with to confirm balances of significant cash accounts, just as an audit procedure. And sometimes banks will identify accounts that have been opened at the bank under the county's ID number, but are not listed on our list, which is derived from accounts that we know of from discussions with the treasurer. And so that tells us then that there's an account that's been opened, and we just try to find out more about the account, like who's managing it, what's it for, what's the account name, those types of things. And as a way to sort of manage or reduce the risk of error, misappropriation, or theft, we made a recommendation that the treasurer's office manage a list of those accounts and at least correspond with department heads or staff within those departments regarding the balances that are in activity monthly within those accounts. Maybe 5 years ago, there was no follow-up meaning the treasurer just didn't even really have any idea how many accounts or what was even open. So we give the treasurer a list and asked that the treasurer work with department heads to at least obtain information monthly. And we have seen, previous treasurer, Julie, she did manage an account, a list, and we would attain that during audit field work. And then we would compare that to what banks would confirm, and sometimes there would be new ones, and sometimes everything would be, but it's out there. There's a departmental cash balance that just kind of needs to be monitored. So that's the point. That's a long-winded answer for what the departmental cash accounts comment is related to. The second comment related to the CDBG housing loan oversight is related to housing authority loans that were being overseen for old deferred housing loans for the county. And it was expected that some of those loans may have been or should have been collected, but were not, because loan file work might have been incomplete, or the liens on those housing loans weren't filed the way they should have been. So the receivable actually is not receivable, and we're overstating receivables. So we were just making a recommendation that the county look into working with the housing authority to perform like a full title search to decide definitively whether some of these receivables that we have on the books are receivable because there's a lien placed, or if they are not receivable because there's no lien placed any longer. And I think the latter, for the CDBG housing, I believe there have been some changes and movements related to those loans being moved and managed over by the clerk's office. Is that correct?
I can speak to, we have actions right now. Attorney Wendell is actually assisting on this. Director Jason Glassbrenner has been involved as well. We're looking to actually do the title searches to figure out what is there and what is not, and then working with the housing authority to bring those funds back to the county, as that program is discontinued and we still have a lot of money that is sitting out there with housing authority that is not being utilized for housing and type initiatives. So we're looking to gain control of that, bring it back in-house, close out the ones that we can, so we don't have those lasting, lingering kind of concerns on, are these truly receivable or not?
Okay.
Yeah, and I think part of my point of asking the question is just to see if we can just get these issues taken care of, so that they're not noted any longer as problems. And I know in your report you're not trying to imply that anyone's doing anything unethical or wrong, but it's just kind of a way to have some checks out there. And I know Treasurer even is here today too, listening to the conversation. So since he's taken over for Julie Keller regarding the departmental cash issue, that was my reason for asking, just kind of in the hope that we could resolve these so that they don't keep popping up in the communication. So other folks have questions for Mr. Moyleen? Any comments?
Yes, I have a general question.
Go ahead.
The flow of monies into the county, are they all received by the treasurer or the clerk, or how is that handled?
With the way of the world now, many of the county's inflows are automatic deposits anymore.
Yes.
A lion's share of the intergovernmental revenues that the county receives are automatic deposits from the federal or state government. Tax collection obviously is different. Many of those payments are, a lot of those payments too are made automatic payments from people during the July collection season. But during the December and January collection period, those receipts are coming from local municipalities, towns, and villages. But otherwise, most of the cash collection takes place in the treasurer's office. I guess I'm not aware of what cash collections might be taking place at other departments. But I guess that could be discussed.
If a cash inflow comes to a department, it then must go to the treasurer's office for deposit. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the treasurer's office is where the the revenues are recorded and the cash is reconciled, et cetera. Correct.
So nobody maintains a petty cash fund in their office. Is that correct?
I can't speak to whether or not there are petty cash accounts petty cash drawers rather at most, most likely there may be cash drawers, at
suppose in the field of human services where you have people who come into the human service offices and are in need of assistance. Maybe it's very minor assistance. And suppose that the particular office retains in its desk drawer a number of gift cards, cash gift cards that have been donated to the office to assist needy people. Are those gift cards to be recorded as county money with the treasurer?
That's a good question. It would depend on on what's actually taking place. If it's a donation to the County Human Services Department or a program that's being run, then I would say that is something that should be, that should be recorded and as revenue the way as intended. But I mean, if it's just somebody on hand, is put the word out that says, I want to be, people are in need, and I'm accepting donations for, this and that personally because I like to give these things out. That's if it's not county involvement. I would question whether or not that's something that should be taking place as well.
I think that's kind of loose. I wouldn't donations go into the general fund and be identified for those specific purposes for which they were donated?
Yes.
Okay. So that the county would have control of those funds to the in consistent with the terms of the donation.
Yes, as long as the information is being provided to the treasurer.
Yes. I don't like the idea of people holding gift cards in their desk drawer.
No, I don't think that's probably a program that the county has that I'm aware of.
That we know of.
Correct. And that's sometimes the issue with departmental cash accounts. Sometimes cash accounts are open for simplicity's sake. And then we have activity that's taking place that is outside of the normal operating procedure and internal control. So that's why we want these departmental cash accounts monitored and activities being monitored.
Does the word monitor here mean controlled?
Oh, monitored mean so that the treasurer is aware of the balances, number one. Number two, also understands the activity, the deposits and payments that are taking place in that account. And
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
anyone else? Anyone else? Yep,
I
Supervisor
want to keep
Jones?
this moving here, but I didn't look at I looked at this, but I didn't look at last year's in comparison, so maybe, has the highway department always had that large of negative?
Yes, it's kind of the way highway departments, when their internal service funds operate. There are state and local and federal aids that help finance county road maintenance and construction, but primarily those costs are offset by tax levy. And in an internal service fund and proprietary fund accounting setting, those types of revenues which are coming from tax levy are not considered operating revenues. They are they're non-operating. So go back one page, Clint. So the operating revenues here, charges for services for the highway department and intergovernmental grants from the federal and state government amounted to almost 3.3 million. But the county spent in operation and maintenance and administrative expenses about 4.8 million. And then there's 300,000 recognized in depreciation expense. So operating loss was 1.7, almost 1.8 million. But general property taxes, that's part of the county's budget, is to help finance the highway department. So yes, that is common, and that is pretty much the way it has been at most internal services funds for highway departments and other counties.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else? All right, so we're looking for a motion to accept this audit report and forward it to the county board. Motion by Turk,
I'll second it.
second by Gentis. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So we'll hear more about this next Tuesday. And thank you, Mr. Moyleen, for taking the time to answer our questions and give an overview today. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that takes us to back to agenda item number 9, approval of fund number 75 appropriations for mobile device communications archiving software.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend paying for SMARSH in the amount of $4,742.07 from Fund 75. The background on this item: Richland County utilized cell phones in many capacities. We have found recently that we have had a need to address archiving text messaging. The state of Wisconsin selected Marsh as their preferred vendor for this option. Archiving of text messages is a requirement of open records. And in order to comply with these laws, we need to implement this. The software will archive all social media accounts for the county also. Requirement of open records. SMARSH is fun to say, and I would defer to Director Scott for any questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, who wants to make a SMARSH motion today? Motion by Turk. Second? Second by Brewer. Any questions on this one? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to pay SMARSH, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 10, approval of ARPA funds for MIS staffing support for reconfiguration and software updates.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend creating a leased LTMIS assistant position to increase staffing and support and to fund the position using ARPA funds. Since beginning with COVID, cyber attacks have increased and they have been targeted more towards government. To ensure the security of the county data and network, Richland County MIS will be undergoing some significant changes. To meet the increased workload, there is a need for additional staffing. As some of the examples we've had recently, I think we had to cut ties with Iowa County's email exchange. Was that this week or was that last week? Friday, we had to cut with them. Crawford County is still on a recovery from their email exchange being hacked. What else do we have? We had Janesville School District. We had as a recent hack, and then of course we had notification. Schreiber was also a recent hack. So it's unfortunate times in the cyber environment. There's been significant increase in requests of MIS staff time. This is partly due to COVID-19, but also due to changes in other areas, staff changes, remote workers, new systems, securities have all played a part in the increase of help desk requests and tasks. COVID-19 has changed the network to expand from work from the home users. With these changes, we've implemented phone upgrades, teleworker, cell phone capabilities. New projects are increasing the demand for MIS staff. The projects range from change in departments, new requirements, state, federal changes, insurance company, cyber insurance requirements, and recommendations. Just a few of the projects that are currently being implemented are the listings below. Apologize, I'm not sharing this. Let me put this up here for the viewers at home. So some of the new projects is there's the AS400, which arrived to us in the wrong configuration. I received a text message of a picture of it today. It's being reconfigured with a rail system. We also have new CentOS server implementation, Smarsh, which you just voted on, migration to Microsoft 365, a wireless access point upgrades, the radio tower project, which we're working on an RFP to take to LHAC on Friday. There's the county board AV project to try to get more capacities in this room. There's the camera system in the jail, as well as highway, HHS, antivirus systems in Spillman, as well as some other changes that we're doing administratively to help make our system more secure, of which we prefer not to say in an open environment, as it would make us possibly more susceptible, but we are working on some other things to keep us safer behind the scenes. Beyond these projects listed, there's an average of 70, 80 tickets per week. MIS department also is responsible for other daily tasks, server maintenance, backups, etc. Utilizing the leased LTE position by ARPA funds will help us accomplish the goals of the MS department. This position will be paid at $14 per hour, 20 hours per week with no benefits. The total cost of this position continued for 1 year would be at $17,157.01. Do keep in mind, this is kind of something that we have to visualize as a fill gap right now for ARPA, as I don't think we need to go down the road of expanding capacities as we've talked about using our ARPA funds. So this is something that we want to entertain, which I do feel we need based on our continually growing MIS and computer needs. If we do this, there's two things that are going to happen. We're going to complete these projects, the caseload will come down. We're going to have to find another funding source. Moving forward, I would defer to Director Scott, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion today to recommend creating a leased LTE MIS assistant position to increase staffing and support and to fund this position using ARPA funds. Does anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Brewer.
I'll second.
Second by Turk.
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
I don't want to add more money to us, but it seems like it's a fairly low salary for the level of competency you're asking for. And then we're worried about paying for this in the future, right?
2 points, I'll defer to Director Scott.
We would be this addition would be going to the help desk. So this is an entry-level position to take workload to shift from our existing staff who will be able to focus on those higher level things. So we can start it out at a lower salary, if that addresses that question. As far as the extending this continually, yes, I'd like that, but I'm also understand the realities of tax levy having limits, and when ARPA funding runs out, that may not be possible. Of course, I'd like you to consider that when we look at 2023 budgets.
Okay, any other questions?
One question.
Yep, go ahead.
Does Ms. Scott think that $14 is enough money to recruit an employee?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, unless there's any other discussion on this, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. That takes us to agenda item number 12, general wage scale adjustment approval effective the first paycheck of 2022. And are we handling all these at once? A, B, C?
I have it on the summary to take as one motion. You can certainly break it down if you wanted to take individuals, Mr. Chair.
Great, so we're talking about A, B, and C on our agenda, discussion and possible action regarding the victim witness coordinator, the highway clerk, and the HHS business system analyst.
Looking today for a motion to accept general wage schedules for 2022 for the place of employees on the pay scale exceptions on specified steps as presented, or as you may amend today. The background on this item is at the May 21st, 2021 Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, there was action taken to age our wage schedule to reflect CPI cost of living increases back from 2018. There is the language motion from that meeting. Am I sharing? I am sharing. Currently, our policy language allows general government employees to progress up to step 4 on the schedule. Several employees were identified as exceptions and not aligned on our current wage schedules by policy. The following recommendations presented regarding actions to these employees. So our exceptions are Andrea Fields, Victim Witness Coordinator, currently its salary at $21.73, which is our grade, exceeds our grade G, step 8. With the new wage schedule, the 2022 increases, I propose Andrew to move to step 6 at 2022-18, effective the first payroll of 2022. This would be a little over 2% increase with Carissa Nimitz at highway clerk is currently at 2024. She exceeds grade F, step 8. On the new schedule, I propose that she is at a step 7 at a 2064 effective on the first payroll. This is a 1.9% increase. With Sharon Passold, HHS Business Systems Analysis, currently salaried at 2403, which exceeds the grade H step 8. I propose Sharon to be moved to step 7, 2466, effective the first pay period for a 2.62% increase. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to accept the general wage schedules that are attached and then place those employees with pay scale exceptions on those specified steps. Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Brewer. I'll go ahead and second it to keep us moving. Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 13, 2022 budgeted reclassifications. And I'm assuming all three again. This is for Health and Human Services, Child Support, and MIS.
Yes, there'll be 3, but there'll be 4 positions. I'm looking today for motion to recommend resolution to the Richland County Board to reclassify the following positions on the general compensation schedule. The first one, eligibility benefits specialist, Health and Human Services, from grade G to grade H. Disability benefits specialist, Health and Human Services, from grade G to grade H. Financial specialist, caseworker from child support, from grade F to grade G. MIS technical support specialist, that would be from grade F to grade H. This was a change that came in late in countering back with our consultant. Effective the first pay period of 2022. The background on this is these classifications were discussed as part of the 2022 budget. Funding for these changes were approved. All 4 of these positions were referred to Carlson Detman, a compensation consulting firm, and the changes reflect their recommendations. And again, on the MIS position, that was a late reconsideration with the consultants based on additional information provided to them. When we had originally put these documents out last week, their position was at as a G, and they've reconsidered to appropriate grading up at H. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so a lot of documents that hopefully folks reviewed. I've noticed a lot of work was done. So we're looking for a motion to recommend a resolution to the county board with all of those. And number 4 on our cover sheet says F to G, but like Mr. Langreich was saying, it should be F to H. So I'm looking for a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Motion by Turk,
I'll second it.
second by Gentis. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 14, extension of use of accrued vacation time, Pine Valley employee.
Mr. Chair, looking today for motion to allow a 2-month extension past January 4th, 2022 to March 4th, 2022 to Angie Alexander, Director of Nursing, in which to take 10 days of vacation. Background on this, Angie's anniversary was July 4th, currently has 10 days of vacation that must be used by January 4th or be forfeited. While it is likely that she'll be able to get a day or 2 off before January 4th, it's unlikely that she'll be able to use all 10 days. While COVID-19 prevention responsibilities continue to stress Angie's workload. There's been staffing challenges on top of the COVID-19 that make it the next impossible to find a way for vacation. I would defer to Therese here from Pine Valley if there was any questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so looking for a motion to allow this extension.
I move for approval of the extension.
Motion by Seep,
I'll second.
second by Turk. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. On to agenda item number 15, health insurance reimbursement for assistant director at Simons.
Mr. Chair, if so moved, the recommendation would be for Simons Auditorium Board made a motion to recommend Richland County Finance and Personnel Committee to allow Keegan Dre to have a week unpaid vacation and not be required to pay the county portion of the health insurance for the week he's on unpaid vacation. The background on this item is Keegan was hired on August 2021 as the assistant director. At the time of the job offer, he requested to have a week off February 2022 for a non-refundable trip that he had previously planned. Director Gobin approved the 1 week unpaid vacation for Keegan. Keegan will not have a vacation time for that trip, but the county's policy is that the county pay 100% of the premium. In the case of such leave and absence, the employee's premium payment is to be calculated by dividing the total annual premium in effect at the starts employee's leave of the absence by the number of hours in which the employee works per year, and multiplying that figure by the number of hours the employees leave in absence. So in talking with Director Gobin, Keegan was aware of this, that there was going to be unpaid and then a premium share with it. The committee did take recent action, though, on something like this with the ambulance service. With an employee there, my opinion, the difference on that one is that that employee was under the assumption he was not aware that there would be a premium share, where Director Gobin had made this clear to Keegan that there was. So I would stand with the policy on this and recommend not, but it is your decision by handbook that you can deviate from this and allow this action if so choose. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to allow him to take a week of unpaid vacation and not be required to pay the county portion of his health insurance for that week.
That is correct.
Okay. Someone want to make that motion? A motion by Brewer,
Second the motion.
second by Seep. Any discussion on this? Mr. Brewer?
Chairman, is the administrator recommending we do not approve it?
I'm not recommending it.
That's right.
It sets precedent.
Right.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's a situation that is different. In talking with Director Gobin, that was communicated. Again, we did make exception to this with ambulance position a few months ago when Darren had an employee that he brought on. Same type of a situation, but that was kind of an errands. Darren did not specify that was a condition of the handbook, is that you will not have to do that. So the body did take action to allow the county to pay their premium share of it. Again, in this situation, in talking with Director Gobin, it was specified that it would not be paid.
Yeah, okay, I am confused because
yeah.
I thought that reading this, okay, so this was written by Tracy Gobin and not by you. And so you are saying you don't recommend what Tracy's recommending?
What the committee recommended.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yes, the recommendation here is written by Tracy in context of a recommendation from the auditorium board.
Right.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Mr. C.
So there is a recommendation from the Oversight Committee.
Yes, the auditorium board is making the recommendation
Okay.
to make the exception.
I generally do not like to second guess an oversight committee, so I continue to be in favor of this motion.
Well, I would say that they also maybe don't understand the precedents of other places and what's happened.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was at the meeting and I don't recall talking about precedent, but
What does the employee handbook say on this topic? I'm not familiar.
Well, we
language
made
is-
next.
Let's let
Mr.
Mr. Yeah, hold on.
The language would say, part of it's captured on the bottom part, that if there's a leave of absence in which there's no type of compensable time, then we operate the formula where the county's policy is that the employee pays 100% of the premium, which is calculated then by, in the case of such leave, the employee's premium payment is to be calculated by dividing the total annual premium in effect by the start of the employee's leave, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so this would be an exception to the employee handbook.
Yes, it would. This would
If
be an
we adopt
exception
this.
to the employee.
And it's certainly not the first exception.
That would be accurate. Yes, there was an exception that was made several months ago, but again, in my opinion, it was different, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill here. I think we should approve this.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote on this. And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay. Supervisor Luck, are you still on?
I am.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with no.
Okay. So that motion fails. Because I heard 3 people vote no and I heard 2 people vote yes, and I was still wiffle waffling, to be totally honest. So, so that motion does fail. Okay. Let's go on to agenda item number 16, changes in Health and Human Services on-call compensatory time.
Mr. Chair, looking today for motion to recommend changes to the Richland County Employee Handbook, Health and Human Services Addendum regarding on-call compensatory time. Background on this item. By policy in the Health and Human Services Addendum, on-call compensatory time is allowed to be carried over into the next tax year indefinitely. It is proposed that the language be changed to pay all unused on-call compensatory time at the end of the year in which it is earned. It is proposed these changes be made in efforts to maintain compliance with IRS regulations regarding constructive receipt and to alleviate administrative burden on WRS and other reporting requirements in the previous tax year. The language changes are viewable below. Currently in the addendum, you'll see where it has on-call compensatory time earned can be accrued. It does not have to be taken in the prior year, prior to the end of the year in which it was generated. That'll be changed then to shall be taken in the year prior to generated or being paid out. Again, it does create administrative burden as if we have time that is accrued in a previous tax year and used in this tax year, we have to go back and amend different WRS documents as well as other types of reporting. So that is my recommendation to you. I believe that Director Thorson may be on to express the negative impacts that it's going to have on some of her potential negative impacts that it may have on her employees. Prior to turning it over to her, I would say that there would be financial impacts with this. As with these monies kind of being carried over, it becomes a little bit of a moving forward liability. In making this change, it's going to have impacts on the Health and Human Services budget for this year and then potentially next year. And then going forward, like with all compensatory times, it's going to be a challenge to monitor, to understand when the on-call might happen, as it's usually in a crisis type of situations. And I would defer to Director Thorson for to allow her to express if she had any thoughts, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's go ahead and get a motion and a second on the floor first to recommend these changes to the HHS addendum.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Brewer. I'll go ahead and second it just so we can discuss it. So I'm assuming I'd like to hear from Ms. Thorson. I think so. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I certainly understand the administrative burden that the comp time, the on-call comp time creates. But I do have some concerns that cause me to not be in support of this, at least for this year. Comp time there are 2 banks of comp time that Health and Human Services staff have. One is regular comp time when staff, as part of their regular duties, work over 40 hours and they're able to bank that time and use it later. And currently all of that time must be either used or paid out at the end of the year. So that's a 40-hour bank of time. The on-call comp time is a separate bank of time for those staff who have after-hours on-call responsibilities. and they will earn comp time in a separate bank when they're doing that. And this is done as a way of offering flexibility, and it's more affordable for us to provide that time off rather than to regularly pay that, as there's a significant amount of time that gets put into those responsibilities. This primarily affects our child protection services staff. However, during the public health emergency, our public health staff are also earning on-call comp time. The funding for that is covered through some of the additional COVID funding that has been made available through the state. So funding of that is not as big of a concern as it is for our ongoing responsibilities with child protective services. Staff oftentimes, because our vacation benefit is not substantial, staff oftentimes count on those hours to plan their time off. And with this coming up at the end of the year, it's difficult. Many staff have said that they were counting on that time to use later in January and February. Getting it paid out certainly will be a benefit to them, but they were really looking for the time off. As Administrator Langrick said, there will be a cost to this. We did not budget for paying out that on-call comp time for this year or in our 2022 budget. My estimate is that it will be between $5,000 and $8,000 to pay that out if all of those staff have close to that 40-hour bank to pay out. And certainly each staff may be using that time as they go, but if staff are holding on to that time to carry over, that would be the liability involved. So I guess understanding the administrative difficulty, we've had this in place for many, many years. And I guess I would ask if it's something that needs to happen, I guess I would wonder, can it happen with a little bit more notice so staff can make plans for it? And those are my concerns, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so if we do adopt this today, this needs to go to the county board, right?
Yes, it would be a handbook change.
Okay,
Your
and if,
resolution handbook
say the
change.
county board adopted it next Tuesday evening, would it have to take effect right now, or could it just take effect January 1st? So that these employees can do a little planning?
It's the carryover factor. So having it go forward into the next year, then without paying out those times and those hours, then would stretch the burden then until through the following year as well. So it'd be another year of kind of administrative burden in trying to sort out and going back into previous taxable years to make adjustments.
So this has already been done. We've been doing it this way, right? We have had that administrative burden for years. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So this is just, yeah. So I think my opinion's kind of solid here. I think we should just wait till January 1st. We just gotta fight this off for one more year, but I don't think it's fair to those employees, if they're planning on vacation, to just all of a sudden take it all away from them. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. I think if we just do the effective date being January 1st, 2022, then there's more planning, and then administratively it helps out later down the road. So Mr. Seat?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I fully support this proposal. It's difficult to retain people in these particular jobs. There's a lot of stress involved, especially in the on-call folks responding to crisis events. And whatever we can do to retain people and to prevent turnover, we should be doing. I think while there may be an administrative burden in terms of the benefit, there's certainly a greater administrative burden in maintaining a consistent staff. So I strongly support it, and I think we should consider it is a price we have to pay if we have a little administrative burden.
Okay, and I should clarify, I think what I'm doing is I'm making a motion to amend the motion that's already on the floor to add an effective date of January 1st, 2022. Let's see if there's a second to that.
I will second that.
Okay, so it's motion by myself, a second by Turk. And so I think, Mr. Seep, if I'm understanding you right, I think you're speaking in favor of the amendment, but also if we vote on the, if it becomes an amended motion, I don't even know if you're in favor of that, you know, so I just want to be real clear here that the original motion is to eliminate this carryover of comp time for on-call staff. It would eliminate it, so they would be paid out at the end of each year. So the motion, the motion to amend is to at least give those staff a little more planning time. Any other discussion on the motion to amend? Yep, Supervisor Lowe.
I would just, Ms. Thornton, is this looked at as like one of those perks that, as far as employee retention, do they consider this to be, you know, because we're limited in how much we can pay them, because we're limited in many other, our insurance going up, you know, is this considered a perk to them to have this ability to carry over? Or, you know, will this create more problems with retaining staff, I guess is my question, if we get rid of this?
Yes, that was the feedback that I received from our child protection staff, that they view it as a benefit for them to be able to have that because of the vacation benefit is more limited and less competitive. So they see that as an extra perk. Yes, that's correct.
And I'm assuming, at least from what I've heard, that the Child Protective Services staff are it's a stressful job, and vacation is actually probably a necessity.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, if there's no other discussion on the motion to amend, let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion to amend, which is to make this effective January 1st, 2022. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion to amend carries. So now we have an amended motion to recommend these changes effective in 2022. I just want to say on the vacation thing, I don't think our staff overall get enough vacation. And I do think that is something that we've discussed, and I think we can put that on the docket, you know, to make our vacation benefits greater. It would help. Obviously, these staff, you know, that makes a lot of sense. They need this. So even though I'm in favor of getting rid of this for the social worker staff, I do think there's a way we can fix that not enough vacation problem that we have in Richland County that makes us less competitive. So any other discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor of the amended motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
Mr. Seep, I didn't hear a vote from you.
I voted aye.
Okay, all right, so that motion carries. Agenda item number 17, Richland County Employee Handbook, Pine Valley Addendum, and FMLA Handbook Updates and Proposed Revisions.
Okay, let me make sure I got the right one here. Motion to affirm all changes in the Richland County Employee Handbook, Pine Valley Addendum, and FMLA Handbook, and to accept a formatting change to the Richland County Employee Handbook. Background on this item is the attached draft of the Richland County Handbook. Pine Valley Addendum and FMLA Handbook is composed with efforts of capturing the transition from the county clerk administration to the present administrator structure. There are also several small formatting changes included. Administration would like to have finance and personnel affirm content changes and accept the formatting changes. This includes changes worked through the Administrator Transition Committee. The Assistant Administrator will be walking the committee through the changes and formatting revisions. I would defer to Assistant to the Administrator, Cheryl Dull, to lead us through those, Mr. Chair, or if you are looking to have the committee entertain questions directly to Cheryl, either way.
let's see if we can just go through questions for anyone who did review this ahead of time. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get a motion on the floor here. I'm looking for a motion to affirm all the changes. Okay, motion by Gentis.
Second.
Second by Turk. Okay, so discussion on this. Hopefully no one minds if I just jump into a few things here. So the first thing is on the top of page 17, and I'm in the employee handbook. I need to scroll to it myself. So I think we need to change, or my idea at least is to change. So the first full sentence at the top of page, and maybe I have the page wrong. Actually, it might have been PDF 17. So that would be actually page 16 as far as the page number goes. Where it says the Finance and Personnel Committee is authorized to extend the deadline. I'm sorry. And so backing up a little bit, this is on vacation. So Finance and Personnel is authorized to extend this deadline if the employee has been unable to take their accrued vacation within 18 months due to unforeseen circumstances. So I think this needs to be changed to the administrator. My opinion is I don't think the Finance and Personnel Committee needs to be hearing about these vacation extensions. We had discussed, I think that had been discussed at a previous point, but I don't know that we ever adopted that change. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I agree. I think that's why we hired administrator to do more personnel and finance. So yes.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and make that a motion, and will you second it?
Yes.
Okay, so a motion by myself to strike Finance and Personnel Committee with, replace it with Administrator. It's a second by Gentis. Any discussion on that motion this would be a motion to amend, I think is what we're doing here. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, so that motion to amend carries. And then my second one was on pages 21 and 22. So that, and they might actually be a little off here. It was something about concerns, the section on concerns. Oh yeah, and I did get the page number right on this one. So it's actually the page 21. My question, it's more of a question, I think. Shouldn't this whole section refer to the filing a formal complaint, concern, and reporting mismanagement policy that the county board adopted? Should we just delete this whole section? And
Yes, we did pass separate concerns here. Yes, we do have a separate policy on filing formal complaints. A lot of the language that kind of covers over this on how employees should be expressing themselves when they're dissatisfied with management types of decisions.
well, I went to the policy and I couldn't quite tell, did they dovetail totally well? And to me, it just seems confusing if I'm an employee and if I have a complaint, if I have this section and then I have the policy, like which do I follow? So could we just replace this with, is it okay with you? I'm asking if we would just replace this section with a reference to that policy instead.
I think that would be appropriate, yes.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to amend that we strike the section number 8 concerns and all the text in it and replace it with text that says refer to the filing a formal complaint, concern, and reporting mismanagement policy. So I'll make that a motion to amend.
Second the motion.
Okay, second by Seep. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those say no. Okay, that motion to amend carries. And then my last thing is there are 7 locations in the document that have question marks on them. So do you want us to approve a document that has all those questions, or do you want to take a stab at, what do you think? Go ahead.
There are questions for you today.
Oh, we have to solve these today?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Okay, so I went through them one by one, so I'm just gonna try to walk us through them and then let's just see if we can figure these out right now. So the bottom of page 19 was my first, and if I'm getting this order wrong, just let me know.
This was my first question for you guys.
Okay, okay. So this is under a section called temporary vacancies. Sentence says, all persons filling temporary vacancies under this paragraph shall be paid at the probationary rate for, and then it says grade 7. That's
Which is,
stricken.
yep, and it goes to A. And then step 2, and step 2 is recommendation when you're hiring a new employee, although I believe there is wording somewhere that they can be placed at another grade should the supervisor choose or the manager choose. So do you want that same wording here, or do you want to leave this as step 2?
Okay, that had to do with their education and their qualifications, so.
Their skill set.
So it seems like that wording should be carried forward to this. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay. Takes care of number 1. The second one is on page 20. It's in the middle. The paragraph is about, right now it says the Finance and Personnel Committee shall be notified in closed session of any employee who has been terminated or had his or her probation period extended. So I think that that paragraph should be stricken. I don't think we need that anymore. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next one. This is on pages 20 and 21. This is about, this is under the section about discipline, suspension, or dismissal of an employee. Right now, it says that prior to termination of an employee, the Finance and Personnel Committee shall ensure that the affected employee is given written notice that termination has been proposed and the reasons therefore. The employee shall also receive written notice in accordance with the provisions of the Wisconsin Open Meetings Law. My only question on this one was, so is an employee going to get a written notice that they're being terminated and the reasons why? Does that still happen? Or if we strike this whole paragraph, does that take away that need to give them a written notice?
But we'd still be obligated to by different parts of the state statute to make sure that they've been given notice that they're terminated, as well as a reason on why, because they would need that to access then a grievance type of procedure. That would be in context, of course, that it's a disciplinary performance type of a separation.
Okay, well, I'm fine then. I just wanted to make sure that written notice was still there. Is anyone opposed to removing this paragraph?
That function would then be fulfilled by the administrator, right?
Correct, but we would still have then grievance procedure, which would come back to you folks.
Okay. Any other questions or any opposition?
Question.
Yep.
Yes, are you substituting the term administrator in place of finance and personnel?
Before the section that's being proposed to be removed, there's a sentence that says the department head shall not have the authority to terminate a non-probationary employee. All terminations must be presented to the, and it used to say Finance and Personnel Committee. Now it will say County Administrator for review and final approval.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so hearing no other questions, I think we're good on the third one. On the fourth one, it's about a lodging receipts. Did I see that?
Page 22.
Thank you. So page 22. This is about lodging, and it says receipts must be submitted in all cases. And then inserted is language that says, and copy of how employee paid for lodging. So is that just like if they used a credit card or if they use cash or check? Is that what that means?
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe it should be worded proof of payment, but it was, I believe it may have been inserted by Melissa, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Is anyone opposed to that change or that wording?
What are you changing?
It's just adding in language. Right now, the employee handbook says you must The policy for reimbursement for overnight lodging, it says receipts must be submitted in all cases. And the proposal is to add language that says, and copy of how employee paid for lodging.
I would say.
Not
most cases
necessarily.
it is, but in some cases it's not. So maybe to receipts with proof of payment must be submitted in all cases. A little bit cleaner wording.
Receipts must be submitted in all cases with proof of payment.
Receipts with proof of payment. As Barb said, most often it's right on there. It'll say it was charged to MasterCard number, whatever.
Yes, we also need to connect it then to that MasterCard associated with the employee that we're relieving the check so we can get it through Audit. But that's what we're trying to get at. Yeah.
Is anyone opposed to that language of with proof of payment? Okay, so we're good on the fourth one. On to the fifth out of 7 here. On page 24, notification of absence. So right now, the paragraph says, county employees must in all instances notify their department head when they are unable to report to work. So there's this next sentence that is proposed to be stricken. And it says, all absences from regular hours of employment must be for a reason set forth in this handbook, and all such absences must be reported to the county clerk's office at the end of each month. We need this?
So I think
At
we're
the-
trying
At
we're
the
actually
end,
trying to get,
Mr. Langrick, go ahead, and then Mr. C.
I think we're trying to get reports of benefit time used. If they can get this to us post haste and in the same pay period, that's a benefit to us. And it's kind of almost a set of expectation that we want it each month, where we would rather have it each pay period.
That would be, instead of striking it, change each month to each week.
Every other.
Yeah, each payroll.
Right. I mean, I understand how it's paid, but if it's gotten to them weekly,
Right.
it would really be ideal.
We kind of already have process in place that kind of takes care of this with our benefit time off slips that departments are submitting. So the language here doesn't quite represent the practice that's in place.
Yes, and looking at that, I'd have a concern that chunk in the middle isn't really about the notification. You want to keep it purely, because the heading here is notification of absences. We're not talking about justification, we're talking about notification. And if there's other parts of our handbook that talk about what the reasons are, then those should live in that other part of the handbook. If we're specifically talking about the chain of notifying, employees should let the department heads know, department head should let the administrator know every pay period is what you're going after, right?
Yes, this bit of language kind of lives in the realm of setting the expectation, and most often probably referenced in a disciplinary realm where somebody's a no show, no call.
So I'm not clear. Do you want the second sentence or not?
No, I'm okay with the second sentence being taken out.
Being removed. Okay. Is anyone opposed to having that second sentence removed? Okay, so we're good on that one. The sixth one is weather conditions. So here, right now, see the way things used to be, I think, is county board chair made the decision about closing based on weather conditions, closing county offices. And right now, the proposal is to insert that the county administrator, in consultation with the county board chair, make that decision. And then in parentheses, someone's written, will closing decision be made by the administrator alone or with the chair? So we need to decide, do we want the administrator to make the decision about closing based on weather? Or do we want the administrator make that decision in consultation with the county board chair?
Well, I think it's, sometimes these have to be made fairly quickly and letting everybody know. And I don't think they can always be in contact with each other. Even if phones don't work I think one or the other should do it. It just seems too complicated. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Mr. Turk?
I think that kind of authority should be invested in the administrator who's here every day.
Yeah.
And if the administrator for some reason unavailable, perhaps the county board chair is a backup, but
right.
I think the primary decision making should be for the administrator.
Okay, is anyone opposed to getting rid of any language about in consultation with the county board chair?
Can I throw my perspective on it from previously? So experiences I've had with this in other counties, I don't think we've done one here regarded to weather, but we went through a couple different months of the COVID thing and what are we doing with the COVID type of thing. So just keep this in mind from like a human resources type of perspective is usually closing the buildings is probably the easiest part of the decision. What is going to be complicated and where the anxieties are going to reach then is, are we closing services? So now does that mean the community is not allowed to come in there? So now are we making employees go home? Are we allowing them to work? And if we're making them go home, are we making them use benefit time? Or are we saying go home and get paid? And some of those are the decision points that are probably more intensified and scrutinized than closing the building. So and with it too is the administrator is, we've got quite a few offices that are kind of outside the administrator scope with your elected officials. So my preference and kind of being biased and maybe perhaps sheepish is having a backup from a county board chair might help with situations like that. Not that I've got conflicting personality things with any of our elected officials, but those are different pieces that come into play for not just the existing people that are in the building, but for future generations as well.
So I just have a question. I remember from working at the campus when they closed it and the students didn't come, it was up to your department head to decide if you as workers should come, but usually it was said, if you feel safe in coming, it was up to you to decide whether you're going to come to work. But I don't think people should be punished financially in bad weather for not coming into the office. So how do we handle it? I just don't think that's a fair situation.
Well, there is language in here about, when they can't get into the office due to weather conditions, they have the option of treating it as an absence using either sick leave or vacation.
Yeah,
So
I don't like that.
yeah. Well, I think the decision before us today, I kind of hear a couple different things here, just on the county administrator consultation with the county board chair idea. You were kind of saying, simplify, just have it be the administrator. You wouldn't mind having that language retained about in consultation with the county board chair, Mr. Langberg?
I think so, because I see the challenge is the language that remains in there is absence for either sick leave or vacation, but then the other decision that's not talked about is, are you forcing people to leave? And you're saying, we're closing, you cannot work here. And that doesn't get really kind of captured here. But again, I think having a chair on board for the decision on what you're going to try to do with it is
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that second issue, let's just leave that aside for the time, because all we're doing right now is talking about whether to leave the chair in there or not.
All right, but I don't know that I can vote for it or not, because I think the whole paragraph needs to be re-evaluated and figured out, and we need to really look into how this is handled. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Perhaps it would make sense to create a whole separate paragraph about how employee time is handled if facilities are closed by management rather than having it all lumped under weather conditions.
Yeah.
Yes, and I should ask too, now aren't we just making changes as a starting point here today? So now we may need to develop some language on that, but there's other changes that might need to be made in here too. So I'm wondering if we can hold off on that and just make a decision about consultation on the chair.
Say that at the end that we want that added on the agenda, or how will we bring that back up?
Yeah,
I can bring that up as a future agenda item.
I think so.
And the decision point then today is essentially when it comes down to tripping the trigger, do you want the chair involved or is it administrator? So, and with policy in place.
I change it just a little bit that you want the chair involved if they can be reached or something, because I'm worried you can't reach the current chair because of phone lines,
He's driving buses.
Talking about one person, but I can see that this could be a problem of reaching. Does that make sense?
Mr. Seep, I know you wanted to say something.
Well, yes, I think in terms of one thing is whether or not there's consultation. I don't think I think if we say that it'll be closed by the administrator if he wants to consult with the chair, if the chair is available, that's fine. But I think we can invest that much trust in the administrator. But secondly, the other details in terms of time shutting down and having people stay home or come to work. The other question that would have to be dealt with is the issue of, we're going to be shut down for 3 days or 4 days. Some people are going to be eligible for unemployment compensation, unemployment. So all of that stuff has to be sort of worked out in a policy and procedure. I would think the administrator would probably come back to us with those kinds of proposed procedures.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make this spell it out real clear and just see if we're all on board with it. So I'll make a motion to amend that the language be retained. It says county administrator in consultation with the county board chair if available. Is there a
Good.
second for that, Gentis?
Second.
Yeah.
Second by Gentis. Any discussion on, more discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I would not support that because I think that goes counter to our intention of hiring the administrator. We're trying to remove the county board from the day-to-day operational control and invest that authority in the administrator and make the county board more policy and budgeting and things like that. So I think that goes counter to that philosophy.
But I was administrator didn't like it.
Well,
Well,
the administrator's free to
No.
consult whoever.
You don't agree.
So,
It works that way. It works that way. And the discussion we're having about more policy language on the other piece of it, it's gonna work. So however you folks want to go with it, we'll make it happen.
Because of course, yeah, you can consult with the chair if you want to, even if it's not in the employee handbook. That's the point you're making. Yeah, that's true. I actually kind of agree with that. Okay, well, let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion to amend then. All those in favor of it, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
So I'm voting no against also, yeah, so we're not gonna make that amendment. And now, you want to make a motion, Mr. Clerk?
I would make the motion that we have the language read that the offices are closed by the county administrator, period. End of sentence.
That's what I originally thought.
Okay, motion by Turk, second by
Second.
Gentis. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Reserved aye.
Okay, so that carries. It's just your job now, Clint. Okay, last one, page 27. There's something about question after administrator, is that right? Oh, this is the receipt and acknowledgement by employees. Oh gosh, right now there's a super long sentence. I don't want to read the whole thing, but unless I have a written agreement signed by myself and an authorized representative of the Richland County Board stating otherwise. What is this about?
This has to do with acknowledgement of the handbook, that it's created and that they are an at-will employee, unless there's some other type of a contract or guarantee in place. So this is kind of the understanding of the terms of the relationship of most employees, with the exception of like a collective bargaining kind of a folks, other folks that you'd have out there with an agreement of employment.
So
Would it be an accurate statement to say, unless there's an agreement signed by myself and an authorized representative of Richland County,
I like that.
which could be the administrator, it could be
Could be the board.
whoever was authorized by either board or finance and personnel. We have a contract with Clint, so.
Yep. Okay, is anyone opposed to that idea? Okay, then we're gonna run with that idea. So instead of saying Richland County Board or Richland County Administrator, it's just gonna say Richland County. Okay, so 6 out of those 7 things, we just kind of did a informal agreement here. That 7th one, we passed a motion to amend. So we have amended this motion 3 times now. So now we need to take a vote on the amended motion, and that would, that applies to the employee handbook, the FMLA policy, and Pine Valley addendum. Okay, so any more discussion on this amended motion before us? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. We've got an employee handbook that can now go forward to the county board as a starting point, and those other 2 policies too. Okay, agenda item number 18, recommending county resolution to accept Wisconsin's opioid settlement proposal, and feel free to make this very brief.
Looking for motion today to recommend a resolution of the Richland County Board to enter into memorandums of understanding and participation in agreement regarding the Wisconsin opioid settlement. Items that you would have seen is the cookie cutter template from Wisconsin Counties Association. We have a resolution that is prepared. The settlement was passed through the final step at the state level was to have the joint finance make motion. It was a 15-minute meeting, shortest in quite a while. So it's all in place. This final bit of it then kind of affirms our position in settling out with the opiate settlement for those pharmaceutical companies.
Okay, who wants to make the motion here?
I'll move.
Mr. Turk? Ms. Gentis, I'll take you as a second. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Seep, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great.
Can't hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, so you voted in favor, so that motion passes, and then we'll go to future agenda items. Get Linda back in here. Oh, no, we still have a quorum. No, we don't have a quorum.
We have, unless Melissa's on.
Melissa, are you still on?
I am, I'm here.
Oh,
very
great,
good.
we still have a quorum. Okay, so Mr. Turk, do you have future agenda items?
I just think a couple things we identified here, conversation about vacation policy and about situations on paying people with weather or other office closures.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Luck,
Nope, nothing from me.
Mr. Seep?
Yes, there are 2 things that I think that we, just for the sake of discussion, we automatically let people step forward to the next level on the compensation as we did this year. And I wonder sometimes if we ought not to consider whether or not an evaluation employee may cause a supervisor or a manager to say, I don't think this person should be given an increase in compensation due to their poor performance or for some other reason, misconduct. Are we going to continue to automatically give people a raise independent of an evaluation?
Okay,
That's
so
one question.
Yep. Pay increases dependent on job evaluations. What's your second one?
And the second question in terms of being out of office or absent from work is the shall we, that's a question I'd like to see discussed. Shall the county allow an employee to attend training conferences out of the state of Wisconsin?
That's right. You brought it up last time, and I have been remiss at getting that back on the agenda. So thank you for the reminder on that one.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Ms. Gentis, do you? Yep. Ms. Gentis?
Sorry, I stepped out a minute.
That's okay. Do you have any future agenda items?
No, I just eventually, when we have time, maybe in January, address the handbook again.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for a great meeting and for all this employee work. There's a lot that went into this. So I'm looking, we do need to do a second agenda or a second meeting in December. Believe it or not, Mr. Langright gave me a longer agenda than this, and I said we couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to Friday, December 17th at 1 p.m. Okay, motion by Turk. Yes, I'll take that as a second by Gentis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
All right, we're adjourned. Thanks all.
See a question? Aren't we supposed to turn in our money thing by that